love at first sight.
Within months, the house became Judith's home.
He offered to help me move and that I could move in with him if I like. There was no carpet in his house, so he let me pick out some carpet. He had previous renters in there. And he had told me that the little one had wet on the carpet. The house needed a woman's touch.
After 3 years living together, the couple wed.
We were married in 1988. It seemed like the perfect marriage, and so he was good to my daughters, played with my grandchildren. My dreams are coming true.
Judith would enjoy 13 happy years of marriage, while most of the world forgot about the Green River Killer. That is, except the men and women of the Green River Task Force. And in 2001, advances in DNA profiling enabled them to compare samples taken from the early victims, including Marcia Chapman, with swabs that had been taken from several men questioned during the investigation.
This is the DNA from Marcia Chapman, and this is the DNA from the Green River Killer. And we looked at them and we're like, they're the same. They're the same. Scary which way?
I couldn't believe it. I was just devastated and in shock, and I think I went into denial. I wasn't believing it.
Only now would the world discover the shocking truth about Judith's husband, Gary Ridgway, the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history.
All of us kind of looked at each other and said, that's the guy that's been eluding everybody for 20 years?
During the 1980s, the mysterious Green River Killer had prowled the red light district of Seattle's Strip unchecked, accumulating a terrifying body count. In 2001, a DNA match had connected 52-year-old truck painter Gary Ridgway with the first few victims.
He had been identified as the most prolific serial killer in the history of the United States. Each of us recognized that this would be the biggest criminal case in the history of the state of Washington.
The prosecution would now be able to interview the man suspected of over 4 dozen homicides.
I'm walking down a corridor and I'm going to open the door and be introduced to the supposed Green River Killer. 100 things are going through your mind and wondering, what is it going to be mean? Is he going to be crying? Is he going to be crazy? And I walked in and like, wow, this isn't what I expected.
How are you? Pretty good.
All of us kind of looked at each other and said, that's the guy that's been eluding everybody for 20 years?
What was remarkable was that he was so normal.
Sleep okay?
No.
Well, that didn't look like the Hilton in there. I got a glimpse of it.
Well, it had a Posturepedic mattress in there, so it was here, so that was good.
Right.
Yeah, a little bit hot in there, but...
If you did not know what he had done, you would like him. The monster within him was well hidden.
People want to ascribe extraordinary traits and qualities to these people. These are, for the most part, very ordinary individuals, except for the extraordinary crime that they get involved in.
So who was the suspected Green River Killer? Gary Ridgway was born in 1949, the middle of 3 boys. He lived in a small house not far from the Strip.
His mom was kind of stay-at-home and then part-time. She worked at a department store. His dad drove a bus for the county.
Gary sometimes would ride with him on the bus, and his dad would say, see her, she's a prostitute, she's the scum of the earth, and would berate prostitutes and talk about how filthy and bad they were. And then there are a couple of episodes where Gary recalls him leaving him in the vehicle while Dad went and had sex with a prostitute.
School friend Terry Rochelle recalls that Gary Ridgway was more inward than his siblings.
His brother was very outgoing and, a bright personality, and Gary was more quiet and withdrawn, I would say is a good word. He was just a little pipsqueak guy, just, somebody's little brother, basically, you didn't pay a whole lot of attention to him. Just kind of in the shadows, I would say, most of his life.
At school, the struggling Ridgway failed to make an impression. However, at parents' evenings, his mother, Mary, did.
All the women kind of sat back and looked at her strange because she would wear a big bouffant hairdo and lots of makeup, short skirts, which were not really the style in those days, especially for a mom. She just always seemed like she was trying to be very glamorous and not like our moms at all.
I always remember her wearing kind of the
really tight
shorts and low cut tops and longer hair. She was very attractive lady.
Ridgway admitted wetting the bed throughout his childhood and well into his teens.
When he would wet the bed, his mother would put him had him get in the bathtub and wash him and wash his genitals.
During one bath, her robe fell open and she was naked underneath, and he felt arousal at that, and at the same time knew that it probably wasn't a good thing to feel, but he felt it.
He talked about having some sexual feelings towards her. He described in some detail watching her when she was in a bathing suit and looking at her and thinking that she dressed pretty provocatively.
This overly sexualized person washing her son's genitals, and you realize that most teenage boys are having an awful time with dealing with their own emerging sexuality, has to have had an impact on some way.
Boys need to see their mothers as asexual. It is very, very destabilizing for an adolescent boy to see his mother in a sexual manner. It's very hard for an adolescent boy to imagine his mother having sex with anybody, including his father. And so when a mother behaves in a sexualized or hyper-sexualized way, it's very unsettling for an adolescent boy.
As Ridgway got older, he started showing signs of destructive behavior, starting fires. As a teenager, he took his first step toward murder.
He approached a first grader, a 6-year-old boy, that he saw playing in a lot near his house. The boy was dressed up playing cowboys and Indians, and he kind of lured him into the bushes and completely unprovoked stabbed the little boy in the stomach and nearly killed him. He told the boy that he just wanted to know what it felt like to kill somebody. And after he stabbed him, he took the knife and kind of wiped the blade off on the little boy's shoulder and, just walked away. And actually, nobody ever connected him to that.
Serial killers need to have some concrete proof of what they're doing. I mean, you can think about something, but until you've done it, you don't know how it's going to turn out. And so what the serial killer does is experiment. Often they will commit an act like a trial run.
Ridgway eventually finished school 2 years late due to his slow progress. The following year, age 21, he married his steady girlfriend and joined the Navy.
When he returned from his deployment to the Philippines, his wife admitted that she had had an affair with a friend of theirs. That was when he first started kind of referring to her as a whore and using other derogatory terms. And that was kind of the beginning of a series of relationships that never quite panned out for him.
During the early 1970s, Ridgway got a job spray painting at the Kenworth truck manufacturers. He then met and married his second wife.
He was very much into having sex, often, repeatedly, throughout the day, as frequently, pretty much as women would agree.
They would go out in the truck, and he loved to have sex in public where they could be discovered at any time.
But after having a child, their relationship deteriorated.
His wife left him when his son was about 5, and that really hurt him. And that was when he started to go frequent prostitutes.
Ridgway claimed he became addicted to prostitutes. He had in fact been questioned by police about his activities on the Strip several times during the 80s, even passing a lie detector test when grilled about the Green River murders.
When your subject is someone without a conscience, who has no regrets and no remorse and no real concern, they can pass them.
He was a magnificent liar. He had an ability just to go and talk, and he would just talk and tell stories, and I you know, for a while I assumed they were true.
And when I would go in to visit Gary at the jail, he would tell me that everything's okay. He didn't do it. He didn't hurt those women. He didn't kill him. He didn't. And I would believe him.
As he was questioned in 2001, Ridgway continued to protest his innocence.
Up to this point, Gary had been maintaining that they had the wrong person, that he had had sex with many prostitutes, he hadn't killed any, and that was essentially going to be the defense.
But when forensic evidence surfaced tying him to 3 more victims, Ridgway's story changed.
Myself and another attorney were in the meeting room waiting for Mr. Ridgway. I don't recall what we were talking about, but we both had smiles on our faces when he walked in. And he said, "Oh, you won't be smiling when we're done. I've been lying to you all. I've been manipulating everyone for all these years. I killed them all."
Only now would investigators discover the shocking horror of the Green River Killer's crimes. In 2003, 52-year-old truck painter Gary Ridgway admitted he was the Green River Killer who had eluded capture for almost 2 decades, a man responsible for the murder of more than 4 dozen women. Faced with the death penalty, Ridgway offered to tell the truth about all his crimes in return for his life.